Man, I go away for a week, and it's like every company tries to make revealing figures an Olympic event. So while I did want to get back to reviewing figures today, I think I need to do a reveals video. Otherwise, I will get no end of questions about what I think until I do. First up, I want to say that while everyone who watched Wednesday's video seemed to love it, also just no one watched it. That thing got like half normal viewership. I don't know what went wrong. The thumbnail was glorious. But if you want more like that, go give the video a watch and a like to help me out. As for this video, your likes, please give. And if you aren't already subscribed, please consider it. Also, huge thanks to the usual suspects making sure I don't miss a leak or reveal. First up, Hasbro showed off that they are going to be doing a strong arm. We knew this was coming, and I very much do not want this. I do not want a figure of the Transformers' biggest hypocrite. Thank you very much. You'd almost think they were being self-aware when they named her, as the only one that's more appropriate for her than strong arm would have been Jackboot. Little miss, the rules only apply when they benefit me, and in either instance, I'll judge you. I legitimately stopped watching RID 2015, I think on episode 15, because I just physically could not stand her anymore. I could not take another second of this vile, officious, utterly insincere in her beliefs bitch, and it takes all my strength to not get demonetized while talking about her. On a far more positive note, they revealed Bludgeon, who has his Alex Milne artwork, so hopefully he will look like his non-pretender IDW version. Though it could just be that they grabbed the first reference they saw on Google. We've seen the prototype for this, which is just a Tarn in toolroom colors with no head and a sword, and I can't stress enough how early this prototype is. It will look very different by the end. Like, I'm calling it now, no way in hell do they keep the kneecaps, feet, and chest piece the same. Hopefully they also mount the arm joint in the opposite shoulder this time, like they should have done with Legacy Tarn. It would change next to nothing about the way the figure looks, while simultaneously making the figure look infinitely better in robot mode by getting rid of the worst case of hot rod shoulders I've ever seen. Then Dark of the Moon Laserbeak is finally getting repainted into the Bumblebee it was always meant to be. And hilariously, the product photography for the two is almost exactly the same. Like, how did they get the poses so close? That either takes immense dedication or reality-shattering levels of laziness. Then Kingdom Cheetor and Waspinator are getting the premium treatment. And hey, this is a set that I may actually want to pick up, unlike the Rhinox and Scorponok, by sheer virtue of them being two solid figures rather than two of the worst figures Hasbro has put out in years. Whose sick and twisted idea was that? But yeah, I'm actually interested in this, despite the fact that I already bought the Netflix version of Cheetor, which was doing most of the same thing this version is. Outside of the wrists, the shins, and the cat eyes, they are pretty much the exact same thing. Waspinator, on the other hand, is something we really needed. He looks excellent. God, staring at this is reminding me of my childhood. And is it just me, or does it seem like the Beast Wars reissues line is dead? There has not been a new announcement for that in a good while. And honestly, I do kinda understand. Like, those things were not selling. I bought basically 2 of every mold except for Retracts, but I seemed to be the only person even buying 1. They shelf-warmed to hell and back. But to be fair to the toys though, I'd say that's because Hasbro kept releasing the worst molds in all of Beast Wars through the reissues. Like, seriously? Wolfang, K9, and Retracts? Iguanus, Pterosaur, Rat Trap, Cheetor, and Tigertron were all bangers. But did anyone on Earth really want the Tick, the Crimson Chin, and Power Hug? Figures that weren't fun almost 30 years ago? Fuck, I'm getting old. Then there's the Gamer Edition Cliffjumper, which, to be fair, is the first time a version of this dude got a toy with the correct head, so I'm sure some people are super happy about this. It's just unfortunate that it comes on the single figure with the most untucked shirt to ever exist. This is the Marilyn Monroe of shirts. Alt mode is still basically perfect though. Then there was an Earthspark Grimlock announced, and it looks pretty decent. This is a redesign that I think works decently well for Grimlock. It looks sufficiently cool, the shoulders aren't overdone, I actually really like the high collar look on him, the head, while different, looks pretty okay, it's got a decent alt mode, though the tail hanging out of the backs of the legs looks a little crappy, and this thing comes with what has to be the worst Build-A-Figure piece in the history of toys. It's a leg in a loafer with some sock showing and no knee. Honestly, it's both lame and kind of creepy. It's like a severed nerd's leg in the zombie apocalypse. Next up, there are 2 figures that I'm hearing have something to do with like a movie ticket line or whatever. I think it's like you can either buy these at the theater or order them online if you've got a ticket, but it's only in Japan? I don't know. I haven't bothered looking into it, and that might tell you how little I care. There's a Burning Convoy Optimus Primal who only holds a little interest to me because, as I've stated many times before, for some reason crystal figures just do it for me. I don't know why I think completely clear figures look cool, I just do. And then there's a Nemesis Prime, which is probably only happening because of Scourge being in the movie, and while I love this mold, it's one of the coolest, most fun Chug Optimuses out there, I'm kind of done with Nemesis Prime. It's a great color scheme, but there's really not a character behind it. It's just kind of the concept of an evil Optimus Prime. But evil Optimus Prime is far more personified by the Shattered Glass guy. So, like, we have 2 different evil Optimus Primes, one with a cool color scheme and one with a character. And as a result, I've kind of had enough of both. Like, this guy isn't interesting enough to make me keep caring every single time they release another one, which is like 5 times per year. And this one doesn't look interesting enough to make me care more than once. Nemesis Prime really needs some fiction to flesh him out, and no, Scourge doesn't count, and no, the WFC version doesn't count either just for sucking like a gut wound. And SG Prime needs something added to his color scheme to make him pop. Then they revealed Studio Series Rise of the Beasts Optimus Prime, and it looks okay. I thought the mainline version looked better, but maybe that's just because he had far less goofy-looking feet and an actual gun, rather than the lame gun hand bullshit this has, which is a take I normally try to defend by giving you all the in-depth reasoning on, like the negative impact it has on storytelling. But is it also fair to just say that I think it's stupid looking? I just hate gun hands. Gundams are supposed to be the evolution of military hardware, the Ultra Tank, better in every way, and yet they still hold their guns like guns because it just looks cooler that way. Also, am I the only one noticing the creepy little face in Prime's torso? Alt mode looks a little messy, but it's fine. Then you got the Gamer Edition Megatron, who I think is definitely one of the better looking Gamer Edition figures. He's incredibly weedy, like the torso is pretty beefy and then the limbs are overly skinny, but it's not bad. And honestly, this fixes my biggest complaints with this design for Megatron. And that's the beaker mouth he had in the game, and the way the cannon looks, which, because this one is on a regular peg, I can just flip around so it's facing the correct direction. I definitely prefer this one overall to the Fall of Cybertron one. I didn't realize this until this toy line came out, but while I never really cared for the designs in those games, I think there is just no denying that the second game was simply a huge step down in terms of style. The original High Moon War for Cybertron just had a much better vibe going on, with its almost Art Deco mixed with Gothic cathedral stylings, which begs the question, why when everything else changed so much between games did they keep Bumblebee almost exactly the same? I guess they did that with Starscream too, and he was one of the worst crimes either game did. Then there's also Studio Series Rhinox, and man, normally I complain that the legs are too long, but this is just hilarious. He looks like Cotton Hill. Was he blown in half at some point, and the only legs they could find were from the kids section? And the color scheme is so desperately uninspiring. Really? This is what you're going with? Flat brown and flat gray with really no design aspect to it, it's all just weathering. God, it's so boring. This is the kind of thing that makes me suspect Greater Bay involvement. Rhino mode is kind of cool. It's unique to say the least. It almost feels like some kind of dinosaur that just looks similar to a rhino. Then we got the IDW 2 packs to talk about. When they showed off the minor Megatron, I was already sold, but then there's a Senator Ratbat to be packaged with it, and I just can't be more down for that. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense to put these two together, and they both look great. Plus, Megatron has an Evo Fusion gimmick that's not completely stupid. Like it becomes an arm-mounted ballista. That's very Sentai and kind of sick. I don't know if they mounted Ratbat's nacelles backwards on purpose or if that's a mistake, but it is a unique look for him, though maybe they should just remove them altogether. And then you have Senator Shockwave and Orion Pax from his weird upgrade body where he lost his faceplate. That was always very confusing. What also confuses me a lot is the negativity I've seen around this set. I think it looks pretty solid, honestly. Like, on the one hand, I get it a bit. The colors and sculpting on these guys seem a little off. I'm not sure what it is, but they don't look like they belong in the recent Transformers lines. Maybe they could be from RID 2015, but for the most part, they look like stuff from some random Chinese toy line than they do Transformers. But I still think they look like a lot of fun. Shockwave's alt mode is kind of the weak link here, but the Siege Tetrajet has always been a bit of a phoned-in one, and this is doing a lot to distinguish itself at least. Shame all it does is make itself look even less aerodynamic. Then there's the Robson Grimlock, and hilariously, even though I'm famously not down for their Optimus, I just don't want that thing. I am way more here for this Grimlock. I think there's probably a pretty simple reason for that in a little Optimus Prime following you around saying stuff like, "You're my best friend," is weird and cringy. But a tiny little Grimlock hype man being like, "You me Grimlock, best friend of Grimlock," would be awesome. Lastly, the thing I'm most excited for, Legacy Rufus. Oh yeah, that's the shit I need. I think this is also a Siege Hound retool, but like a heavy one. The legs just scream that older figure, and I can totally see how you'd wrangle that design into this alt mode. I will say that the thighs and arms seem a little skinny, and I'm a bit concerned that this is his knees bent at their maximum level. That would suck. Plus, you know the head is obviously only going to swivel, but I'm still stoked for this, which may surprise anyone not too familiar with me. I'm the anti-hype hypist. I love it. It's so awesome. Here's all the reasons it sucks. Just because I complain doesn't mean I do not love. Weirdly, I think that almost everything I looked at in this video is probably excellent, though a good amount of it was not for me. Like, Strongarm will probably wind up being good, but I hate the character. Bumblebee is probably okay for a Legends figure. Cliffjumper might be good. I don't know what the consensus on the Gamer Edition Bumblebee is. So I don't know if the mold is bad outside of the messed up torso. Both Grimlocks look fun, the Burning Convoy and the Nemesis are both really solid molds, so they will be fun even if I don't want them. The one thing that looks comically bad is the Rhinox, and even then, that looks like it probably has some redeeming features. As much as I ranted and raved in this video, I think it's a pretty good looking glut of figures. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.